Scientists discovered something about human consciousness that they're not telling the public because it's too terrifying. I work as a research assistant at a neuroscience lab, mostly doing data entry and basic analysis for studies on brain function and consciousness. It's usually pretty routine work, analyzing brain scans, organizing patient data, helping with equipment setup. But 3 months ago, I stumbled across research findings that have completely changed how I think about what it means to be human. Our lab was collaborating with several other institutions on a study about brain activity during different states of consciousness, sleeping, dreaming, anesthesia, coma states, that kind of thing. The goal was to map exactly what happens in the brain when consciousness fades or changes. Part of my job was organizing data from thousands of brain scans taken during various procedures over the past 5 years. These scans showed brain activity patterns during surgery, when patients were under different types of anesthesia, and during various stages of sleep and dreaming. I started noticing patterns in the data that seemed unusual. During certain types of deep anesthesia, brain activity didn't just slow down like we expected. It showed specific, organized patterns that looked almost like communication. At first, I thought it was just electrical noise or equipment malfunction. But the patterns were too consistent across different patients, different machines, and different time periods. Something was definitely happening in the brain during these unconscious states. I brought my observations to Dr. Martinez, the lead researcher on the project. She looked at my analysis and got very quiet, then asked me to compile all the data showing these patterns and not discuss it with anyone else in the lab. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Martinez and I analyzed hundreds of brain scans showing this unusual activity. What we found was absolutely terrifying. During deep unconscious states, the brain wasn't just shutting down. It was displaying complex, organized activity that resembled active communication networks. The patterns looked similar to brain activity during REM sleep, but much more intense and structured. It was like the unconscious brain was having detailed, complex conversations or experiences that conscious patients had no memory of when they woke up. Dr. Martinez contacted colleagues at other research institutions, and we discovered that similar findings had been observed in labs around the world. But none of this research was being published or discussed publicly because the implications were too disturbing for people to handle. We learned that during deep anesthesia, coma states, and certain types of sleep, the brain shows evidence of experiencing time differently than during normal consciousness. Patients might be unconscious for a few hours during surgery, but their brain activity suggested they experienced subjective time periods of days, weeks, or even longer. Think about that for a minute. Someone going under anesthesia for a 3-hour surgery might subjectively experience weeks or months of time while unconscious. Their brain is active, processing information, potentially having experiences, but they have no memory of it when they wake up. The research showed that these unconscious experiences weren't just random neural firing. They had structure, narrative, emotional content. It was like people were living entire lives during periods when they appeared to be completely unconscious. Dr. Martinez showed me brain scans from coma patients that were even more disturbing. People who had been in comas for months showed brain activity, suggesting they might be experiencing subjective time periods of years or decades. They could be living entire lifetimes in their minds while their bodies lay motionless. The implications of this research were staggering. Every time someone goes under general anesthesia, they might be experiencing extended periods of consciousness that they can't remember. Every night during deep sleep, we might be living complex experiences that disappear from memory when we wake up. But the most terrifying part was the discovery that these unconscious experiences seem to be connected across different people. Brain activity patterns during deep unconscious states showed similarities that suggested some kind of shared experience or communication. Multiple patients undergoing surgery at the same time in different operating rooms would show synchronized brain activity patterns during anesthesia. People in comas at different hospitals would display similar neural patterns during specific time periods. It was like unconscious minds were somehow connected to each other in ways that conscious minds couldn't access or remember. There might be an entire layer of human experience that we're completely unaware of during our normal waking lives. Dr. Martinez explained that this research had been classified by several government agencies because of the potential psychological impact on the public. Imagine if people knew that every time they went to sleep or underwent surgery, they might be experiencing extended periods of time that they couldn't remember. The research also raised disturbing questions about the nature of consciousness and identity. If we're having complex experiences during unconscious states that we can't remember, are those experiences part of who we are? Are there versions of ourselves that exist only during these unconscious periods? We found evidence that some patients' unconscious experiences included interactions with deceased relatives, visits to impossible places, and access to information they couldn't have known during their waking lives. These weren't just dreams. The brain activity patterns suggested they were having genuine experiences. But the most terrifying discovery was what happened when we tried to wake people up during these deep unconscious experiences.